All right, well, let's get back to it. So it's time to adventure on into html.inert. I don't actually have much of an understanding of what this module does, but I think it's related to like, it's like the Elm test's representation of the virtual DOM, but only the parts that cannot produce events, something like that. Let's see, maybe we can check and see if there's any documentation for it. Inert HTML, that is, can't do anything with events. Okay, well, that was my guess, although it actually has messages in it. What is Elm? Oh, elm-html comes from a separate type. So this contains a node. I'm not really sure what the point of this module is. It seems to simply contain types from this other module. Well, I guess there's some tests for it, so we will hopefully learn more from the tests. So yeah, okay, so our goal here will be to find the tests that depend directly on this module, and like we just did for test HTML descendant, hopefully change those tests to use some higher level API so that we don't need to expose this publicly anymore. So let's check it out. If we go to our top level Elm JSON and remove this and run our tests, we should find some failures. Oh, or maybe not. Okay, well, it looks like some of the past work we've done has already removed the tests that depended on this directly. So that sounds great. That looks like that's done already. I'm noticing some comments in here about not exposing this module. Oh, right, okay. So because this was previously listed in the publicly exposed modules, it was failing to compile if there wasn't a documentation comment on everything in here. Let's just check that. So if I put it back here for a moment and remove this comment, I think our test script will fail. Yeah, because it doesn't have documentation. Okay, great. But if it's removed like we want it to be, then everything's good. So we can go back through these and remove all these to-do dot comments. To-do. So we've basically done that to-do. Whoops, I just deleted something. Okay, there we go. Okay, great. That was a super easy one. Did not take us 45 minutes. Great. Okay, so we can remove all these unnecessary dot comments. We are done with that, and we have removed it. Easy. Oops. So we want this. So this was HTML inert. All right, on to our final private module. I guess, quick, you just have a few moments to get your wagers in about how long this one's going to take us. We had, what, I think 45 minutes or 40 minutes for this one, like 2 minutes for this one. What were some of these others? I think we spent maybe like 2 hours on one of these. I forget which one. All right, well, let's dig in. We're going to remove it from the exposed modules and see what fails. Ooh, it's looking like nothing. Ah, awesome. Okay, so this is another 2-minute fix again. That is great. Let's double check this module real quick and see if we had any of these extra dot comments to do. Okay, this we're gonna get to in a minute. Okay, that's an interesting to do. I guess we should add another to do in our master to do list to be check for other unfinished to dos in the code. Okay, that might be important. Okay, this encoding stuff, this potentially can be removed. I guess we'll find out when we hit that. Should be tested in queries. Okay, let's come back to this one in just a minute. That might be addressed. Not tested. Okay, not tested, not tested. Is this tested? Is this tested? Okay, that's apparently also not tested. Tested to do. Okay, so I was looking for more comments like the ones we just saw in HTML inert about dot comments that we just added temporarily, but I don't see any. We did find a bunch of other to-dos we'll need to check back on. But apart from that, and did we just run this? I think we did. Oh, and we need to mark this off. So we are done, I think, with removing these. So test runner failure, expect, and fuzz were all previously in the test package. Shrink is another module that had to get added. It used to be in an Elm shrink module, Elm shrink package, but now it's been moved to elm-html or to Elm explorations test. And then these test HTML, event, query, and selector are the 3 modules from elm-html-test. Yeah, these 3, which are the 3 that we want to be adding. So that actually satisfies this one as well. Make sure everything we want to publish is exposed in Elm.json. And I think that's done. All right, so another quick one. So we've got that. We are removing that. And this is similar to our previous test message. We are removing internal types from the exposed modules. Great. Okay. Well, that's perfect. I was not sure if we would even finish doing this item today, and we totally blew through it. All right. Let's see. I don't think I've missed anything in chat. Looks like we've got a few more viewers, so welcome everybody. Feel free to say hi or ask questions if you've got any, or share about projects you all are working on. And I hope everybody's having a good weekend so far. Mine was a bit unusual. I don't normally stream on Sundays, but I had some friends visiting earlier in the weekend, so moved it to today. But hope everybody's having a good one. Okay, so now I think we're to the point of actually doing some interesting refactoring. So one of the changes in Elm 19 was when you made some HTML, if you wanted to attach styles as like a style tag to a DOM element that you were making, in Elm 18, you would call HTML attribute style, and you'd pass it a list of tuples, where each tuple had the name of the style and then the value of the style. In Elm 19, that changed so that HTML attribute style simply takes 2 strings And then if you have multiple styles, you just pass them as multiple attributes. So it's kind of like divorcing the, like making each style kind of behave like an attribute in the virtual DOM. So currently in elm-html-test, it's representing styles as a list of styles, which works because we got all our tests passing. Although I guess we could double check and make sure there's test coverage for the style stuff. But I wanted to take a look at trying to change the internal representation to more closely match the way that elm-html works in 19. So let's give this a try. We'll basically be taking like a list of styles internally and changing it to be a single style and seeing what comes of that. So hopefully that'll work out, but I'm interested to give it a try and at least if it doesn't work, understand why it doesn't work. Oh, and hey, Catastrophe, thanks for the follow. Welcome to the channel. All right, so let's give this a try. So Elm internal types, we basically already have open. Let's close this other stuff. Right, so here are attributes, and styles currently contains a list of string tuples. So let's try changing this to just be style and have it take two strings. I guess we should maybe try to give those names. I'm curious what these are, what good names for these would be. Well, let's check the HTML module and see what they're called. Style, specify a style. Okay, it doesn't say what those attributes are named, but maybe we can check the source code. Oh, this just calls virtual DOM.style. Okay, if we go to the virtual DOM package, okay, and this just calls another style, virtual DOM, and this is just called key value. Okay, let's try calling it that, key and value. And it looks like this is one of the files that VS Code is not running Elm format on for some reason. Okay, but if we run the test, we should get some compile errors. And let's go see where this leads us. Okay, perfect. And actually this, we already changed this to just decode a single style in each item. So now we will just create this whole thing. And this parentheses matches, no, it does not match that. Okay, like that. And let's see, I'm going to clear the terminal each time we run these. All right, and now here's where we actually destructure this. Internal styles. Okay, so this just has a single style now, or I guess it has a key value in it. And then this creates a style. I'm assuming that's defined in here somewhere. Let's turn on case sensitive search. Style. Okay, that must come from another module, which must be selector internal. Okay, so this defines style. Okay, great. So we'll just call this key string value string and do the same thing, replace this list. All right, so then here where we're creating it, we now will be making a key and a value. And then down here, I guess this is an interesting problem, or not necessarily a problem. But should we be changing the elm-html API itself to kind of match this new way of doing things? Let's see. So currently in elm-18, we would have style. I guess the documentation is right here. So you'd call it like this, with query has a particular style. I feel like we should change this to work the same way as the HTML package. Matches elements that have the given style, and possibly others as well. Yeah, okay, and then we would check this. Actually, this is out of date as well, because in elm-19 it would look like that in the first place in the HTML library. Let's see, I'm going to format this a little differently. Okay, and I mismatched the parentheses. Great. Okay, and then style here is going to look like that. Yeah, I feel like this is the right thing to do, to make the API in elm-html-test match the API change that happened in elm-html. And just to double check, style, yeah, is indeed taking two separate strings. Okay, so hopefully there are some existing tests that we're testing multiple, a selector with multiple styles that we'll have to refactor and make sure this works when you give it multiple styles. But I think this is the direction we want to be going, is keeping this API kind of in line with the way the elm-html API works. All right, let's see where we're at here. So internal selector, line 69, style to string. This now takes the key value pair that we defined. This doesn't need to join anymore, and it doesn't need this extra separator, and instead we just have key value, and we're just taking this. Okay, that should fix that one. Let's check line 170. All right, what is going on here? First argument to style is not what I expect. the item in our variable is key string value string, but style needs the first argument to be a list. Okay, so what is this? Okay, so we have, so far we've seen style as a variant name defined in 3 places: the internal types, selector internal, and now apparently in elm-html query as well. So I guess we're changing it here too, and see where this leads. Seems like things are working out fine so far, so I'm hopeful this isn't going to get us backed into a corner. So now line 336 here, style, so has style. This now changes to key and value. And contains all we shouldn't need anymore because we just have one. What does this mean? Contains all. Where is that? Okay, that checks a list. Takes a list of A and a list of B. Okay, I wish there was some nicer docs on that. And what do we have? Facts.styles. Okay, so facts.styles looks like it's a dictionary. So I think we can do this a lot more efficiently than using contains all here. We should just be able to look the key up in the dictionary, I hope, and check it for values. I am gonna hope that this is a dictionary of strings to strings. Let's find where facts is defined. Not in this module, it looks like. I'm gonna guess that it's a type alias. Yes, okay. Styles is a dictionary of string to string. Great. So now, down here, we will dict.get the key, and has style is true from our facts.styles. So we'll look up in the actual styles on the HTML the key that we're checking for, and if it's in there, its value must be, well, just, meaning there has to be a value for that key first of all, and if there is a value, it needs to match style.value from this record that gets passed in. Okay, I think that's a correct translation, and I hope we have test coverage. I'm like 70% confident we would have test coverage for this. Let's see, so line 73. This, okay, it looks like the same kind of thing. I think this function is only private to this package, so we're not changing the public API if we change this function here. So I think we can safely do the same conversion here. Key string, value string. Okay, and where are we here? 222. So we rename this to just be style singular in there, so I think that's correct. And now line 250. Okay, and then we changed the type annotation here, but didn't change the parameters. So we get the key and the value. We're making style where key equals the key we get, and the value field equals the value we get. And we already updated the documentation here, so that looks great. Okay, it looks like the main module's compiled, and now we're on to the tests themselves. 234, okay, and we changed the API here to work like that. I'm gonna put it to do, is there a test of using multiple style selectors simultaneously? If not, I think we should backfill a test for that, which shouldn't be too hard. Okay, and I'm guessing the rest of this is just going to be the same kind of transformation. 192. Oh, great. Okay, and here's a test where there's multiple styles. So for these tests where there's just a single style, we are converting it like that. And for this test now, where there's multiple styles, we're basically just going to have two selectors, and style background purple. Okay, and let's format that real quick. Oh, it just formatted. Great. Okay. Okay, and then more of the same. Here's another style. Color green becomes a single style selector. And where else? Okay, that looks like that's it. Let's reformat, because I'm still not sure why VS Code is not formatting every file. And npm test. And I think we're good. So we did find that other test that was testing multiple styles simultaneously. So I think we're good for this. If I remember from our to-do list, okay, this second item, HTML-test selector style, should take two strings instead of list string string. Okay, and I think we just did that also. So this is HTML-test selector, and style is here, and we made that change. Okay, and we kind of ran into that as we went. So I think we just took care of both of these two items, which is great. All right, let's double check what we did. So pretty much all throughout, we took lists of string tuples and changed them to be a single record having a key and a value. And it looks like everything basically just works fine, because when we fixed the test in the first place, we were basically already converting lists, or we only had cases where we were checking for single styles anyway. Or I guess to say that more clearly, the virtual DOM representation always had style nodes with single key value pair styles in them. So we really didn't change anything here in terms of what we were already able to do based on the virtual DOM. Okay, so we did the same changes here. All these lists just become single values, and we're using records with named fields instead of tuples just to be kind of nicer. Fixed up the toString, updated the documentation, and changed the API. So this will be an API change in elm-html-test, but it matches the API change in elm-html itself, so people shouldn't have too much trouble upgrading to this, I hope. And then we updated the tests, and then here's the test where we were checking multiple styles at the same time, and that all works. And we checked off those two items. Great. So we did update handling of styles to match elm-html's new API. And specifically, this changes HTML-test selector style to take 2 strings instead of a list of string tuples to parallel the change made in elm-html. Okay, great. Well, let's see what's left. Okay, so we're down to kind of a hacky thing we did in like the first or second stream where we were trying to deal with this. Well, let's see if we can find the code for this. HTML inert. Yeah, so here is the issue where we basically are, the way this package works is there's some kernel code, which is JavaScript code that's used internally in the package, which takes the virtual DOM representation and gives us back what that looks like as a JSON value, which we then decode into an Elm structure that we can inspect in the test. So if that decoding of the virtual DOM data structure ever fails, we had to deal with that somehow. And the way we did it is we basically make a fake HTML document that just contains some text with the message in it. And I think, or like what we want to investigate here is, can we have this return a result? Meaning if it succeeds, it will give us some HTML, and if it fails, it'll give us the error message back. So we tried doing that initially, and I forget exactly what happened. I think maybe the problem was that there were a bunch of tests that were calling this function directly, which, like we just saw, there aren't any tests remaining that directly use this module. That was what we just looked at maybe 20 minutes ago. So I think our first step should just be to try making this be a result again. And see how many places actually call this that will need to deal with the result here. I'm hoping it's just 1 or 2 places. And in particular, it should be somewhere in the query module. And in the query module, I think, like we were debating a couple of weeks ago when we were looking at this, in the query module, I think we just want to add an extra variant to the custom type to represent when there's an error case, which there isn't currently, but I think there's a good spot to fit that in. So let's try changing this to a result, which means if we get a node, we are going to, let's see, we're going to return OK with that node. And if we get a failure, we are going to return error with the string message. All right. So that should compile, or this module should compile, but the project itself should be failing. And it looks like there's 2 failures, and they're both in the same module. I'm not sure if that's all the errors we will run into or not. Let's see. So here's where we call it, and then we get an internal query. And where's the other place we call this? Line 371. HTML to Elm. What uses this? I see. That's used in contains. Okay. So here we're giving an expectation back. So if we had a result here, we could deal with it just fine. And then in this other place, line 88, we're actually building a query value. Let's check what this data type looks like. Internal.query. Okay, I guess I don't know which module this is. Internal is test HTML query internal. Okay. So that's here. Okay, so we are making a query here. Okay. And this gives us a node, a list of selectors. I see. Okay, so I feel like we could add an extra branch here, which is like internal error, meaning that the virtual DOM failed to decode. So if we add that, then we can do a case on this. And if we get okay, node, then we are making this, where this is the node. And if we get the error message, then we'll get internal.internal error message. Oh, I see. Except we need to return a single here. So it's really not the query that needs the error state, it's the single. Okay, so let's see where single is defined. I guess that's also in internal. And that's here. Okay. Internal error. Hey Andre, welcome to the chat. How's it going? So if we add a way to represent errors in the single, I think we're also going to probably end up having to add errors here. Although, I guess the query itself contains an error. Or if we put the error in here like we were first doing, then like there's nothing about the nodes represented in the single. Okay, I'm going to backtrack and say that internal we do want on query, because then we'll get the benefit of it both on single and in internal. Let's see, been curious about Elm for a few weeks. The syntax is familiar but also not familiar. Yes, and that's true. Yeah, I've been doing some more Haskell programming more recently after I started Elm. So I think I'm a lot more used to it now. But I guess even when I started, I kind of liked it because it the syntax is almost like the simplest thing that'll work in a lot of cases. It's like tries to strip out a lot of extra weird syntax things you need to know. But yeah, it's definitely can be unfamiliar compared to a lot of languages. But yeah, have you started, have you tried to build anything with it yet? Or have you just been reading about it so far? And also, yeah, today we're kind of working on the internals of one of the core testing packages. So stuff we're doing today is probably not super representative of normal application development in Elm, which I will definitely be getting back to doing more streams on that kind of stuff once we finish with this project of upgrading elm-html-test. Let's see. So if we do put the error on the node, then that means here we also still need to convert this to single. So we can put this up here then. And I feel like an interesting thing to me when we started looking at this was the fact that the query doesn't really get evaluated in advance. It basically like builds up your query selection in a list and then stores the node, and then it only evaluates, like it only actually evaluates the query selection when you try to run the expectation, which kind of surprised me. I was expecting that it would like kind of partially apply the queries as it went. So because of that, I'm not 100% sure that this is the right place to track the errors, but it looks like it'll be fairly easy to add, and maybe someone who understands this code later can come in here and clean it up. Let's see, just reading around. Oh, you've got high hopes for using Elm? Cool. Yeah, I learned about Elm when Evan gave a talk at Strange Loop a couple years ago, and gave it a try on the flight home, and have been, started getting into it more from there. And yeah, I'm lucky enough to get to use it at my work currently. But yeah, I really like having the type safety of the compiler. I guess I used to be a Java developer and missed that, having that kind of stuff in Ruby and in JavaScript too, I guess. Okay, let's run this again and see where we're at. All right, so line 52. Okay, so here's the query. We added a second variant to the custom type, so we now need to switch this to use a case statement. And if it's a normal query, we'll do this normal stuff. And 2 lines. Okay, query, if this is an internal error, I guess we'll give 2 lines. We'll give the message, and we'll give internal error. Failed to decode the virtual DOM. Please report this at. And we should put a link to Elm Exploration's test to the issues page. All right, what's next? All right, line 283. And same thing here. Traverse. Interesting. So this can produce a query error. So if we have case query of, and the same trick here, normally we'll do that, and if we get an internal error, what is query error? no results for single, or multiple results for single, or failed to, or we already used the word internal error up here. Maybe we should call like other internal error. Not sure that's the best way to name these. We can maybe rethink the naming once we get this working. And yeah, it's a little weird, I think, that we're tracking errors both in the query and when we evaluate. But yeah, like I was saying, I feel like I don't understand the reasons for why this was structured the way it was enough to feel comfortable trying to make any kind of changes to that. All right, line 290. Okay, and this is a result with the error case being a query error. Great. All right, 232. Working our way up. Great. Okay, so we've got the same thing, query, query, and we will case. And if we get a query, we will do that. If we get an internal error, then we are simply going to return that same internal error. Easy. Then line 71 and to output line. Okay. And we'll do our same trick, case query of, and if we have a query of this type, we will print that. Actually select as is unused. And if we get an internal error with message, then we'll use the same kind of message that we used here. And we will add on the message. All right. And here now on 439, query error to string. Great. And if we have other internal error with a message, then we are going to use the same message here. All right, let's see how that goes. All right, we're done with that module, it looks like. And query now on 376. Okay, HTML to Elm. This is not exposed, and it's only used in one place. So let's just inline this first of all. And then ultimately we're getting a result now, because this produces a result. So, okay. Expected HTML. Wait, did I mess this up? What was here before? We called HTML to Elm, which is a function. Oh, I see. It's list.mapping. Got it. Expected Elm HTML. Okay. So I guess we need to map all of these and make sure that none of them are errors. Okay, so we're going to take list.map. We've got our expected HTML, which is a list of HTML. If we list.map that with from HTML, we will get a list of results. And we kind of need a function that will essentially take a list of results XA and give a result, I guess, list X, list A, something like that. If I were doing a normal elm-map, I would think there's probably a function like that in the one of the community extras packages, but we don't really want to add more dependencies to Elm Exploration's test. So let's just write this real quick. Collect results. Okay, and I guess we'll say if it's an empty list, it's going to return OK. If we have a next value and then more values after that, then I guess we have a case here. So if we get an error next, and then we'll also have the case where we get a value next. And I feel like we're also going to need an accumulator here. We are essentially going to need I guess I like to call these step functions. And we're going to call step with our two accumulators. We're going to need an accumulator for the list of errors and accumulator for the list of values. Okay. I guess let's call these X's and A's. Oh, we can't call these A's. Errors, values. Okay. So if the list is empty, then we're going to return the values that we've collected. And I guess we also need to reverse this because they'll be built up in the opposite order. If we have more items and the next one is an error, oh, I guess this isn't actually going to work. What we need here is we start with OK list. Our step is going to take the next items and it's going to take the accumulator will be that result. And this will be your recursive function. Okay. So we'll accumulate our final result in here and we'll get our next items here. Okay. So if we're out of items, then we'll just return whatever we've accumulated. If we have an error, then I guess we need more cases here. We need to destructure both at the same time. So if the accumulator is already an error, and we get more errors, then we now have error with X added onto it, and and the rest of the items. If we had an OK so far and we get an error, then we are going to start accumulating errors. Okay, and then finally, if we already have errors and we get an OK value, we are going to ignore the new value and just propagate our errors. And if we are OK so far and we get a new value, then we are going to tack it on. Where we will be OK again. We now have A in addition to the values, and then we have rest. Okay, and then our final problem is, if we're done, we need to reverse these. And if we're OK, we also need to reverse here. Whew, okay, that was a much bigger recursive function than I was expecting when we jumped into that. So now we can collect results, or let's see, so we take our list of HTML, we map over it, and this now gives results. Now we will collect results to get a single result that's either a list of errors, a non-empty list of errors, or a possibly empty list of values. And then what do we do here? I guess we need to case on this. So we take that, and if we get OK with the expected elm-html, then we do all this, and if we got an error with errors, then what does fail with query do? I guess we can just say expect.fail directly here. String.concat. And we'll say failed to decode virtual DOM. And I guess this is the same as the message here that we want to use, like this. And I guess we'll join this with new lines. And then I guess we also want a string dot, or a list.concat. So we have this static message, and then we have a list of multiple errors. Okay, and then this is gone because we replaced it by just inlining it here in the case. Okay, and then we've used the name list twice. So let's just call this outer one list of results. All right, so 375. What is wrong here? Oh, right. And then in this case, there was a bit more code, which we didn't pull over yet. HTML to Elm. that needs to call inert.toElm-html. Okay. List.map inert.toElm-html on those list of nodes. Inert. Great. Okay. And then we don't need that argument anymore. We change the signature midway through. And how is this going? Okay, so that passed. This is like an error case that won't normally happen in normal use. So let's try to break this real quick. Internal types. We should be able to break this by changing some of the decoders, like here. So if we change this to like some random value, this should cause the virtual DOM decoder to fail. Oh, is that not? I guess that one's a number instead. So this, I think, will cause the decoder to fail, which should give us an error of the type that we saw. Yeah, okay, so this is saying from HTML, internal error, failed to decode the virtual DOM. Please report this. Problem with that value, no such type as 0. Okay, so that looks reasonable. And basically what we've done is we have removed the code that would, let's see, where was it? Internal. Where was that code? Yeah, this code. So we've removed this code that was basically creating a fake HTML document, and we are now in a more type correct manner tracking errors up to a higher point in the code, and then we've added a bunch of cases where we've handled those errors and printed specific messages. Great. So I think that is what we wanted to accomplish. Figure out how this can return a result without making this need to return the result, which I believe we haven't changed from HTML. Yeah, so this still returns a single. This is the public API of the module, which we don't want to change. Great. So I think that is perfect. Where is this? This is in inert. We need to clean up the comments there. So this does return a result now. And this is no longer relevant. And now we should have passing tests. Cool. And I think I'm going to wrap up the stream here. So let's commit this real quick, and then we can check who else is online and see if there's any other good channels I can direct you all to. But thanks for tuning in today. If you all have any last minute questions, speak up now while I'm getting this committed. And yeah, in let's see, so where are we at? This, I think there's nothing really to do for now. This is just a note for me for the future. So we saw a bunch of to-dos in the code. And then there's maybe some small cleanup. So I think there's some stuff that either doesn't have test coverage or is like some of the other features we saw in the past that like are supported at a certain level in the internal modules, but aren't actually supported for the whole package itself. So I guess we need to look into this. So I guess I would estimate maybe 1 or 2 more streams on this project before we're finished up, and then once that's done, we can get on to some more fun projects some more fun projects of just building some stuff in Elm 19. So I hope you all will be back for some of that stuff in the future. Thanks for hanging out today, and let's get this committed. Inert, we handled our internal errors. I think this definitely could be handled a bit more cleanly, but like I mentioned before, I don't really understand the reason the queries are represented the way they are, so I don't really want to do too much of a invasive change without understanding that better. All right, and the main change here is HTML inert.fromHTML returns a result. Great. All right, well, I hope everyone else, or I hope all of you have a good rest of the weekend. Let's see. Ooh, okay. It looks like Freya is online. She's been one of my favorite streamers in the last couple weeks since I've discovered her. But she does development, coding, like game development streams during the week. Looks like right now she's doing some music streaming and like writing, producing some music. So let's go raid her, and thank you all for hanging out today. I will hope to see you all in the future. See you then. Bye.